Clubhouse.
Brand isn't something you earn, it's something you live up to. You think you deserved it when I gave it to you? Look at you now.
Boy okay?
Boy's fine.
You okay?
I almost lost him.
Well, it's hard to measure almost, because almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, isn't that wise? Who told you that?
You did, sir.
This is Stef.
This is Sheila.
And welcome to Pod Clubhouse coverage of Yellowstone Season 1. This is episode 4. We're talking about the long black train. So Sheila, it's good to finally talk to you again. This was a really, like I said, it's a long episode, but it's not in terms of time, but it's long because a lot happened.
I was noting that this one felt really busy.
Yes.
And eventually this does get kind of resolved as the show kind of quote unquote grows up a little bit more. But there was just so much to pack into this episode. It was just, there's dead bodies and Casey's involvement on the reservation, and then there was like the fallout literally in the cleanup from the suicide. Mm-hmm. There's a cancer diagnosis.
Right.
There's a bunkhouse shenanigans, and Beth and Dan Jenkins are like on the verge of having sex.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to keep track of. And
yeah. Was this all in one day? Because it was a busy day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if that's a Dutton day, I'm going to pass. But I guess if that's my biggest complaint about this show, that it's too busy, I guess that's a good thing.
There's a lot of good stuff happening in terms of drama and plot and
I just felt that there was just like some big story points that got kind of glossed over. And we'll talk a little bit more about when we get to it, but like when my husband and I watched this, because he's into it now, there was this mention quickly of John's cancer diagnosis. Yeah. And I was like, it came back later when one of the ranchers was talking to him. I was like, wait, what happened? Like, you have to be paying like massively close attention. Like, it just, I don't feel like it was given the due in the scene that it needed for like people to really understand, because it literally came out of nowhere.
We don't even know who those two guys were that were talking about it, really. So it's like, wait, what did they just say? Like,
yeah, they were just like visiting the ranch, and they're talking about like his son taking 2 feet out of his colon, and then later on it was just like, but it wasn't clear who they were talking about until later, and then like John and has a cute little story about it, but it was just like, wait, what just happened?
Right.
Rewind. So that's what I mean, like when I say that it's busy and there was a lot going on, because like your head is still swirling from so much that's happening. You're just like, wait a second, I missed something. And literally we did miss something, so we had to go back and watch again.
And we didn't even see Jamie, so we didn't even get any further in his storyline. At least we didn't have something else crazy happen with him.
Yeah, no more beatings. You know, maybe he's just keeping the ice on his fresh wound from Beth.
Aw, probably so.
Licking his wounds in the corner.
Hiding out for a little bit.
And I guess, you know, it makes sense. Like, there's only 10 episodes in a season, so you do have to kind of push the story along, but this was just jam-packed.
A lot of storylines, and some of them, like, secondary. So I think we should dive in. I guess what's really interesting was rainwater and these developers finding the bones.
So that's actually how we ended the last episode and how this one started. So, yeah, good place for us to start. Do you think that he thought that the bodies that were found were Native American?
I didn't get that feeling. Maybe since they were buried on the reservation, he could assume that.
The reason I ask is because I was just picking up on some of his body language. He just seemed very angry. He just seemed very, I don't know if distraught is the word, but he was definitely
like disturbed.
Disturbed, yeah, because you know he cracks the bone open and makes the guy smell the fresh bone marrow, and he's retching. So that's what just made me think like maybe he was like, you know, this is just another one of those instances where like the white man comes here and, you know, does their thing to us. And then also the energy company is probably irritating the hell out of him because they just want to keep, you know, moving to their schedule. Like, well, we got to get this drill in the ground and whatever.
This
else.
is violating our lease agreement.
Right. Especially when he says to Ben, you know, like, how far do you want the cordon? He says, you know, off to the horizon. He wants to uncover the secrets that are there.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, I would say, pissed off or disturbed or whatever. Like, he's motivated to figure this out. I mean, he's kind of like, screw your timeline. Like, this is more important.
Yeah, and I just like the whole, like, transaction between him and the developer saying, well, if you thought that these were old relics, they would have been on eBay.
Yeah.
Who is the twisted who's out there on eBay right now going, I'm going to, like, Google some, you know, old Indian bones.
Right. And buying them.
Put that in my house on display. If you are one of these people, I would like to know a little bit more about your psyche.
No, you really wouldn't.
From a distance.
Yeah.
Hit me up on Twitter, people.
That's funny. Girl,
From a
be
distance.
careful what you ask for.
Exactly. Let's clarify. From a distance. I do not want to be up close and personal with your collection. I just want to know a little bit about the psyche.
So that leads Rainwater to do some digging.
Do you mean literally or figuratively?
Yeah, no,
with
I
that
mean
digging?
figuratively. How he sort of lands on Casey. But like we said last time, I believe, Casey seems to be involved in a lot of weird shit, so...
Yeah. Well, they pulled those bullets. They pulled the bullets out of
that's right, of the bones.
Out
Yeah.
of the bones, also indicating that it was fresher than the energy company was alleging. They were able to do a matchup, I'm assuming, to Casey.
I really like how Rainwater is like talking to Monica and sort of describing that, like, these like seemingly random acts of violence aren't so random, are they? Like, and he compares them to a spider. Like, you can see the web and you're not sure how it all fits together, but you know there's something behind it. I thought that was really good analogy, I guess, or an interesting way to frame it.
The spider web analogy, to me, initially it felt very elaborate, but thinking more about it, like knowing that there's a big spider sort of behind it, I feel like it's a bigger analogy for like the Duttons.
Right.
You know, like the reach of them, and you know, not everything is what it seems, and we can make you disappear like a spider can make a bug disappear, you know? There was a lot more behind it than just, you know, obviously just talking about Casey, I think.
Right.
He was going out of his way to almost intimidate Monica, but trying to seem pleasant at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, he's not accusing him straight up or, you know, but he's letting her know that he's sort of putting the pieces together. But she doesn't know, like, she doesn't know anything, so I'm sure that's, like, really scary for her.
Right, because she's been kept in the dark this whole time about really what's been happening. So she only knows snippets. She knows something bad went down, but, you know, she doesn't actually know much more than that.
I was curious about how Casey ended up arrested. But since you said the thing about the bullet, so that was enough to arrest him at the end.
Yeah, I'm assuming that they were able to do some ballistics matchup because, you know,
Okay.
they can figure out the type of gun. Even though the bodies were burned, the bullet looked very intact, and I don't know what the threshold is for bullets, but they were able to. Yeah, sorry, I didn't Google that. I Google everything else, but I was just like, no. But I'm sure that they were able to do enough of a ballistics matchup to say that this is the gun that he has. And now we've already known that they know what kind of gun he has. So
Yeah.
I'm sure they were just able to put two and two together. And there's probably not that many people that have that gun on the reservation. But there's plenty of guns on the reservation from what we've already seen. But somehow they were able to narrow it down to him.
But didn't he switch slides with the officer?
But I guess they didn't examine that part enough. But we know that Ben, the sheriff, right, the reservation sheriff, and Casey carried the same gun. So we know it wasn't Sheriff Ben. So therefore it has to be Casey.
This could be trouble.
Or they could have just been like, it's convenient enough and he's already caused us enough trouble. Let's just point that finger that way and take care of that problem. And also, if they wanted to go that route, then that would also rattle John's cage, which we already know that Rainwater wants to do.
Right. Yeah.
And he's already sort of lost the battle with the cattle. The cattle battle.
I love how I just said the battle with the cattle.
So he's probably going to want to save face. So if he can like rub John's nose in the dirt just a little bit further, Why not? All they
Right.
need is probable cause.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, they don't have to have a locked and sealed case to arrest him. They just have to have enough to go on to arrest him.
That's sad, though. It made me sad. when he
Oh,
got
that whole
arrested.
entire scene where he's getting arrested, I was just like, I was on the verge. I was on the verge of like some tears brewing because Monica's
It's like the way
freaking
Monica's
out.
like looking at him like, oh.
And she's like, I love you. And then she's holding Tate, who's asleep, just to make sure that he doesn't wake up to see that. Like, I can't even imagine all that she's feeling because she doesn't know much about what's going on, about what's caused this. He just keeps disappearing for these long periods of time. And Tate came home with a rattlesnake and they don't know why. And nobody's saying anything. And even Tate doesn't know. He just knows that something happened off yonder, but knows enough not to ask about it. So, so she's literally in the blind here, not knowing.
I thought it was interesting that she told Casey we're running out of places to hide when I didn't really realize that they were hiding that much. Like, what else are they hiding from?
I didn't even pick up on that.
Does she just mean the fact that, like, she's sort of picking up on all these mysterious things, like Rainwater was saying, like, something's going on and they all seem to be tied to Casey? Like, maybe that's sort of what she meant by that, but I thought that was a weird comment for her to make, and it just stuck with me that she said we're running out of places to hide. So I was like, okay, like, where have you been hiding before? Or like, what does that mean?
That's interesting because I wasn't picking up on anything else that was maybe illicit. I don't know. He just seemed to be a horse trainer, so that's not illegal in any way, shape, or form. She's a school teacher, so
Yeah, and didn't we say that he just got back from war or the army or whatever? So I don't know. I just kind of thought that was an interesting comment from her. What was really worse to watch for Monica was the aftermath of her sister-in-law's suicide.
Could you not just smell what was going on in the room when she was cutting up that square of carpet?
No, I couldn't because I have no idea what that would smell like. Like, never. No, what really bothered me was, or in my head, I thought, okay, why is Casey not doing this and Monica giving the kids a bath? Like, why is she in there doing this? I was like, no. I'm sure maybe she just said, let me be alone, I'll do it. But,
Right.
like, ugh.
And then, like, the kids sitting in the bath all crying. I'm just like,
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
oh, that was just so heartbreaking.
I was like, the babies. Even though they're not babies. But,
No,
it's
but
like,
yes, exactly.
are.
They're babies in that moment in time, yes.
It also was sort of gut-wrenching what she was saying about the sister-in-law making herself a sacrifice instead of it's not a suicide, it's a sacrifice, which was pretty, like, terrible to think about. But also, like, as a mom, what lengths would you go to for your kid, you know? Like, I think most moms would do some pretty crazy stuff for their kids, like to protect them,
But somehow suicide is way at the end.
Right.
Like, I would be doing 1,300 other things before that would be an option for me. Yeah, I mean, that whole statement, that whole conversation was with that being a sacrifice, not a suicide, was just so gut-wrenching and just horrible to watch, horrible to think about. And just knowing what had just happened, the kids are in the bath, they're getting cleaned up because they have to clean the house and they don't want the kids to see what's going on. Like, oh my God. But to have, like, no job, to now have no income, I don't know, I'm like at a loss because, like, how is that your out? How is that your decision that this is the best thing
Right.
for your kids? Grandma and grandpa are great, but
I mean, it's like, is there no government assistance? Is there no church assistance? Is there no, like, anything you could do?
I would be tapping on every single person's door, be like, can you watch my kids? I gotta go work. Can you watch my kids? I gotta go
Yeah.
work. You know, and I have personal stories as well. Like, my mom was a single mom. When I would turn 7 years old, she started working nights in an emergency room. She's a nurse, but she started working nights so this way she could be home with us to drop us to school and pick us up from school and do homework. She would sleep in those few hours while we were at school during the day. She would pay a lady from our church that she knew to come in and basically sleep, you know? So that's, but it's a sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
That's a sacrifice, but she
Yeah.
didn't commit suicide to do the sacrifice. She sacrificed that she would only get 4 hours of sleep for like months and months on end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's other things that could have been done. But I mean, I guess when you live in such hopeless circumstances, and Monica touches on that this was the purpose of a reservation, that it won't be long until there's no one left.
And to say, too, that losing your husband and like the depression or the emotions from that, like, is a strong thing.
Yeah, we're not diminishing that at all.
Right. Like, she could have been in a in a like crisis mental state or whatever. So clearly that decision was made hastily, I think, or just maybe not made in full conscious.
She wasn't thinking on, like, firing on all cylinders, basically, when she was thinking about this, I'm sure.
Like dealing with depression or emotion or fear or anxiety or so many different things could have been a factor.
Right, and then also having access to firearms when you're in a state like that is just not good. But I mean, this is also another reason why this show is so great, because it puts these issues front and center.
Yeah.
That you can't ignore them. You have to think about them. You know, we're spending a great deal of time here talking about it because the show is good for that, because we don't see this side of society really portrayed in mainstream media. So highlighting this, you know, talking about, like, this is the point of reservation so that there would be nobody left. You know, these are some big issues that our country has, you know, a conscience about it and has to still grapple with. Sometimes it gets forgotten. So even bringing up suicide and suicide, I was surprised that there wasn't like a suicide prevention title card at the end.
Right. Maybe there was on live TV, but I watched it on Amazon Prime.
I watched it on Peacock and there wasn't one. It was just so sad, because then now knowing that the kids are going to get shipped off to Washington State, and Monica's smart. Like, she says to Casey, like, I need you to bring Tate away, because he's going to ask questions that I don't know how to answer. So they're giving, like, Tate, this little kid, such respect, knowing that he's going to ask questions that they're just like, I'm not equipped to handle that right now, so it's just better if he's just not here. So I thought that was a really nice nod to them as parents as well.
Yeah, protecting him and having the right circumstance to discuss that later.
And when the emotion of that moment has also settled. So I think that was smart on Monica's part. I'm sure, like, she's sending him with Casey to John basically very begrudgingly, because she's definitely not enjoying this presence in Tate's life and Casey's life.
Right. Speaking of John and Tate seem to have quite the adventure. How cold is that river? Oh my gosh. I was freezing watching
So
it.
I'm trying to figure. So, like, if last episode, the one we talked about before, was the mom's anniversary, we know that's the end of March.
So they're still, like, coming up on summer, but
yeah, they're still in they're
spring.
They're not even spring. Well, yeah, they're barely.
Well,
into
to me,
spring.
I say coming into summer because in Texas, like, April is really hot. So I guess that's not true in other parts of the United States. My viewpoint on summer is skewed.
Yeah, like I'm in the Northeast, so like I'm more.
You're like
skewed.
summer,
like summer. Summer's June, like the end of June.
No, summer starts in April. I'm like, it's hot. Like, put your sweaters away. You only need them for 1 month. Like, I'm serious.
I took my winter clothes out. What month are we in? This is October. I took them out like maybe the 3rd or 2nd week of September.
No.
And we just left a small amount of, like, short sleeve shirt. All the shorts went away.
I wore a tank top, like, yesterday, like, out and about.
Yeah, no. In the autumn, it's winter in the morning. It's, you know, spring in the afternoon. And by the time he gets out of school, it's summertime. And then it goes back to wintertime.
That's how we are until, like, January. So from now until January, it's like you want a jacket on in the morning.
Yeah.
But then don't wear long sleeves because you want the, like, so.
Yeah, you gotta, like, layer up.
Top. Yeah. I wore a tank top and then brought a sweater because I was like, it's hot, but, like, cool. So anyways, so they go to the river, which seemed to be really far away.
It did seem far away. I mean, but again, there are ranches the side of Rhode Island, so I mean, they could trek for a day and a half and not reach the other side.
Yeah, so they have time to go to the river. I love how he's teaching him to build a fire.
Yes.
It's so cute.
So I get the feeling that John Dutton never did this with his kids.
Yeah, for sure.
But I am going to say that this kid, Tate, gets into more trouble in just these first few episodes than I think I did my entire childhood.
Well, he's related to Casey, and Casey's been getting in a lot of trouble, so yeah, runs in the family. But yeah, you're right. He's just like, is he accident prone or just trouble prone?
Yeah, I just think it's one of these, like, he's in the right time in the right place for trouble to find him. He takes a plunge in the raging river.
The raging river of death.
So then, like, my mind goes to, like, the geography of the region. I'm like, where does that river go? Because, like, in Yellowstone, like, because they're right up against the national park, there's the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone.
Oh.
They have 2 of them. They have, like, an upper falls and a lower falls, and it's
really
enormous.
Oh my gosh.
Enormous. Yeah, so I'm like, what if John doesn't catch him? Like, does he... Of course he's gonna catch him. Yeah, so like that's what I went to. So, but we got a little news about John that's gonna complicate what's about to happen. So I'm gonna back this up a little bit.
Okay.
So John rescues Tate. Yay!
Yay.
But yeah, the kid's freezing and like tips over, and John's all freaking out. Gets the fire started, right? We see John has a big scar, right? He tells him that it was cute how he played it off that he got into a sword fight with a goblin.
Yes.
I'm gonna pause on the John Tate conversation if you don't mind. Okay. This was one of my biggest problems with this episode. Because that's when my husband and I paused and we're like, wait, what did he like? Where did that come from? And we went back, and way back in the beginning of the episode when John is he's still trying to tame the horse.
Yeah, he's like on
that
top
Casey,
of
and he falls off, right, the horse.
Yeah.
And there's these two like old timers watching, and they talk about, one of them says to the other one that he has colon cancer, and that his son just like took out like a 2-foot section of his bowel.
A week ago.
Never mind the HIPAA violations, right? Like, I work in healthcare, so, never mind, like, the fact that, like, this guy's son is telling his dad about John Dutton, who's, like, Mr. Mayor of Montana, really. But it was such a quick conversation that it just, like, that's what annoyed me the most about this episode. That it was just, like, this huge, groundbreaking news for not only the Dutton Ranch, but the Livestock Commission and all of the other holdings that John has. The fight with Dan Jenkins, could be impacted by this. And it was just such a quick, nothing conversation. Yeah. It irritated me, but...
You're like, that is so...
There's my long-winded rant. But what did you think about that? Like, am I off on that?
No, I mean, it was definitely glossed over. I did pick up on that conversation with the cowboys of him, basically, that he had cancer. But I thought, like, okay, a week ago he had surgery and he's on top of a bucking horse. Like, I don't think so. That part seemed more unrealistic to me than small town gossip. That happens. People.
I think John being on a bucking horse a week after surgery is the most Montana John Dutton thing we could see.
But then they like come and question him in the barn, like, "Oh, you're our commissioner. Like, are you going to be around? Do we need to find somebody else?" Like,
we're concerned about longevity here.
I thought that was funny. He basically told him to F off. I got this.
Then there was this conversation later with Tate after he's warming up, and it was just so sad and depressing. He's talking about like Tate growing up, and he's going to miss him, and
he said, "I'm going to be an old wrinkly raisin."
Yeah.
It was so funny. I like seeing John and Tate, and I don't know, it's just a good like conversation that they have.
But I like that we're seeing more of John's personality, because he's often just kind of stoic and given a look. So I like when we hear his perspective, like these little tidbits of wisdom that he's sharing along. It gives like, I don't know, it's giving us like insight into where his mind is. Right now it's on his cancer diagnosis, right? Or his cancer treatment. And I just feel like he's very contemplative about life, his own mortality, but he's convinced that he's got a while to go yet.
Yeah.
When I think about that, like I think about like when he's by the fireplace later on, when he's by himself.
Yeah, and he's upset.
He's upset. And yeah. I think this is like a very symbolic step. Like he's burning dollar bills in the fireplace, whatever fell out of his wallet.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was a symbolic step for him in his evolution. Like he needs to focus on his family. Because if you remember last episode when he's in the barn and Jimmy finds him and they're talking about the mother of the family dying.
Yeah.
And John was talking about like the heart of the family, is dead, but it's just taking longer for his family to die.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this might be like the show's way of saying like this is a shift in how John thinks.
I really identified with what he said about, I'm going to miss you. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm right here. But I mean, don't you look at your kids and then I get all these memories from them on Facebook, like when they were 4 and I thought they were big at 4 and now they're 7 and like, oh, like I miss my babies.
Yeah. When they were so small. I mean, like mine's only 7. Like there was a memory on Facebook today. I took him to his first Comic-Con. He was 5.
Aw. Cute.
And everybody's like, you're crazy, you're gonna bring your son to Comic-Con? I'm like, hell yeah. He dressed up as Spider-Man, I dressed up as Wonder Woman. Like those little moments you miss, and then in a blink he's like off to 2nd grade and like, peace out mom, like I can walk to school myself. Not walk to school, but like he doesn't want me to walk with him to the door. So I have to leave him at the car at the street.
That's funny. Already? I'm always like, do you know where to go? They're like, yes mom, we know. Our kids are very like affectionate. They want hugs and they just want to like constantly be on you or like hanging on you and
yes,
always, which is nice.
Relate.
And then like also at the wrong moments. So
Yes.
my husband and I were trying to have like a conversation about something that was like not kid approved in the kitchen, and they kept coming in and we're like, he's like, why are you hugging me? And I'm like, babe, one day they're gonna like want nothing to do with you.
I just had this conversation the other day with my husband too.
I mean, I get frustrated too sometimes. I'm like, just let me finish my sentence before you're like hanging on me. But I was trying to remind him, like, I always want a hug and a kiss, whatever you're going to give me, because one day you're going to want nothing to do with me.
I know. I feel like I want to store them up.
Okay, we are being like super sappy, sentimental, like moms here.
Like we're going to be passing the tissues in a minute, but I feel like this is where John is at.
He missed out. Like he definitely didn't do this with his kids.
Agree. And he's trying to make sure that he's going to be around for these moments with Tate. Yeah, this entire line with John is what I think I needed to see from him, because all I've seen so far is gruff and tough, and I like what we're seeing from him. Like there's this emotional well that he's tapping into that we just haven't seen yet.
Yeah, but this is like rare for him. I feel like he's the hard ass like all the time. Like,
yeah, that's why I liked having this moment with him. It's like, okay, you are human. There are chinks in the armor.
Like I'm still scared of him.
Hell yeah. Like I do not want to be on the wrong side of John Dutton, because I do not want to end up at the train station. I think he's trying to save his family, because again, the last episode where we saw this like family implosion between Beth and Jamie and the anniversary, and now Lee is gone and Casey's struggling. There's been a lot of fireworks that have gone off.
Yeah.
Not just the river that got moved, but there's been a lot of bombs that have gone off in John's immediate circle. Some of these are really earth-shattering, like the loss of your child. So I think he's trying to take a different approach, because he doesn't want the family to die the way that, he was talking to Jimmy about the last episode.
Mom moment over.
Yes, exactly. All right. We're going to move on to Beth next.
The most unlike mom person. She is pretty harsh in this episode.
Unmatronly?
Yes. Unnurturing.
Not maternal. Are we making up a new word? Unmaternal?
Yes. We are just rambling at this point.
Coined it. Unmaternal.
Unmaternal.
And someone's gonna comment and be like, the word is actually this.
Yeah. I love that she is like, no, I'm just here to make a scene. Like that's her whole purpose for being at this like country club wherever they were. She
went to go meet Dan, right? That's where she went to go.
Yeah, she called for him. Like she showed up there and was like beckoning him. Like they're like, she's like, go get him. And all of the manager was like, there's no smoking. He's like, I tried to tell her, but she just, I mean, she had a good point. like,
and they go around the room showing like the candle, the fireplace.
Yeah. Like you can't argue with this woman. Like she is just not going to take it. She said, I'm going to stab you in the eye. Like,
yeah. And then she calls the bartender a tattletale.
She is like a force.
But some of the early reviews, because I went looking at some of the early reviews, because we had now a different perspective of Beth, you and I, from where we're picking up this podcast, right? Or this season. So, but some of the very early reviews of her was that she's unlikable. I don't understand her purpose here.
Yeah.
Like as horrid as she is in her behavior, there is something so irresistible about her when she gets all fired up, like with the whole smoking thing, because you can't help but laugh, because she does have a point.
Yeah.
And just how she just cuts down the men around her.
Yeah.
Without mincing any of her words. The whole thing about the miss versus ma'am.
Yes.
She's got some logic and points.
Yeah. She's smart.
But I feel like this episode, we got her purpose.
Yes.
Her intent.
And I feel like the first time I watched season 1, like I sort of missed that in terms of me thinking about Beth. Like you're right. Like sort of initially you're thinking like, what, like, why is she just so horrible? Like she's mean to everybody. What is her purpose? But I caught that this time when Rip ended up in the bar with her at the end.
Yes.
And that was really telling. Yeah. And she's just talking about how she's like making her enemy emotional. When you're emotional, you lose your rational thought. So I was like, ooh.
I jotted down the words that she said. She says, Rip, you want them emotional. You want them angry. The more they feel, the less they think.
Exactly. I mean, so her whole purpose with this Dan thing is just to like...
fuck them up.
Yeah. And I love too that she said, I just wanted to prove to you that the West is not one. Like she just wanted to show him like, you do not belong here.
her strategy, he's here to just toy with her food, to distract Dan.
It's a cat, like, playing with her toy, like patting him around this way and that way just to mess with his head.
And also just to show him he doesn't know exactly what he's dealing with when he's dealing with the Duttons.
Yeah.
Like, he thinks he's seen it all, and now she's just going to throw on another layer and be like, you haven't seen anything yet, honey. She
gets him, like, punched twice in, like 2 minutes.
The throat punch had me rolling, because he's just like,
he's like, we gotta go. So funny.
She neatly packaged that to say, like, that the West is not won. We're still wild out here, and you think you got it, Mr. California Man. No, you don't.
I loved it. And I'm so happy that I really saw that at the end when she was talking about, like, she's just messing with him, like, to make him more emotional, to throw off his, like, focus,
Yeah, mess up his game. Because keep in mind, we still haven't seen the fallout from the river being moved.
Right.
He's just angry right now. And he thinks he's going to get somewhere with him and just...
This was the scene, too, in the bar that I'm going to do that TikTok voiceover thing. She's like, you can't talk to me like that. But we're going to post it on the Pod Clubhouse website.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Absolutely. I'll have to wait for season 3 for mine.
Yes.
Yes.
I loved Beth in this episode, and she was just, like, on a rampage. I loved it.
Because, again, we were kind of critical of her the last time out when she was, like, sitting in the trough and, having her adult tantrum. But this episode was definitely much more of her role here.
Yeah, her plan
and her strategy. So now we just know that this is what she's going to do. And now that she's laid it out, all of it makes so much more sense. Back to even when we first saw her in episode 1, when she's, like, neatly laying out the CEO of IL Energy, and she was trying to make him angry.
Yeah, for sure. Tear him down.
Yeah, but she stays calm through it all. So she definitely knows what she's doing. So she's
like just as scary as John is, though.
Yeah, but
like in a different way.
Exactly, just in a different way. She's much more savvy. She can articulate better what she's actually trying to do, whereas he's more just like, well, I'm just going to do this. And
yeah, well, she seems more vocal about it too. Like, she wants to be that, like, smart ass and, like, tell you off or whatever, and John just wants to, like, secretly, like, go behind your back and mess you up.
Yeah, they're both calculating in their own ways, but it's like it's fun to watch them be so different but yet get to the same ends.
Yeah.
But I feel like she's probably right now the most successful. Because she's rattling everybody right now. She rattled Jamie last time out. Yeah. She rattled Dan this time out.
Apparently, if you're any man in her life, she's just going to get you beat up, or she'll beat you up herself.
Yeah, so far Rip is the only one that, she just verbally, cuts him down.
Yeah, she verbally abused him.
He's getting some, so really, how bad could it be?
Right.
So Rip is a good segue. So
we have a lot to talk about with these ranch hands.
These bunkhouse boys, yes.
Yes.
So I did. So when they're out in the very beginning, when they're out, like, searching, they're rounding up the cattle, right? That has been let out, and they have to from the cattle battle. I just had to work that back in.
I didn't know that ranchers herded cattle with helicopters.
No, I can't say that I have much experience with that, but apparently if you're John Dutton, you do.
Just get in a helicopter.
But I did cackle at the shit for brains comment that Rip made about Jimmy when he fell off his horse, and the fact that John saw it was just like, ooh, that's just doubly bad.
Doubly bad. You're fine.
I just feel bad for Jimmy. Like, he's just been shit kicked around this entire season, and
yeah, he's really suffering.
Yeah, but Lloyd steps up because, Lloyd now knows that he has got the brand, and he tells him, like, you got to get your hat, and, this is what a respectable cowboy does. So I love these little, like, nuggets from Lloyd.
I do too.
As well.
I loved what Lloyd told Jimmy about, like, nobody's cut out for this. It's cut into you. And I was like, ooh.
Whoever would think to say something like that, right?
Yeah, because it's literally cut into Jimmy.
Because he remarked, like, that you're even starting to walk like a cowboy.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. And if he's like, no one's cut out for this, cut into you. Like, that's a really good statement. But then Jimmy sees this little calf stranded in the thicket.
You made me laugh.
But, I mean, he was stranded. This poor little thing just bleeding his little heart
Lost.
out. Jimmy has a moment, though. Do you agree?
Yeah.
He's got a moment. He can make a choice, be like, I can leave this bird to die, or, or just take off and catch up. he just like survives and like rescues this little dude.
Seriously, how did Jimmy pick up a cow on top of a horse? And my husband was like, it's just a baby cow. I'm like, but a baby cow must weigh, what, 200 pounds or more?
Oh, I don't even know. And, like, their legs don't bend the right way. You know, like, human babies are malleable, right? Like, think about trying to get your baby back into a car seat. You know, they bend.
Well, Jimmy can barely get on a horse. I don't see how he can put a cow on a horse. I was like immediately like,
you're
come
calling
on, Jimmy.
BS on this is what you're doing.
I am. Like, there's no way you can pick up a cow and put it on a horse.
Maybe he just like shimmied it. I don't know.
Come on.
I don't know.
It's Jimmy.
But that's a very good point that you make it. Now I'm just like, yeah, how did he do that?
It's
like,
just funny to me. I love it. I love these little things. I'm like, come on, really?
Yeah. Exactly. It was so just cheering for Jimmy when he like rode up, and they were berating him already, be like, oh, nice of you to catch up.
Yeah.
But he's got the little calf, and then he says the dumb thing, I wonder which one's its mom. Meanwhile, there's a cow just like, blaring at top volume. And then Rip has to be like, yeah, I wonder.
It's so funny. I love Rip. He's like, come on, man.
But then we get introduced to someone going to the train station.
Oh, yeah.
So why do you think Fred had to go? The guy who ended up going to the train station. They make allusions that he knows too much.
Well, if you've been around the Dentons a while, I guess you could sort of pick up on this person was here and now they're not.
We blew up a mountain to move a river.
Yeah. Like, we don't know what they've been doing before episode 1, so
right.
They've probably been up to other shenanigans. Apparently going to the train station is a very bad idea.
Yeah, you much opt for the bus station, people.
If you get a choice, choose the bus station. I mean, yeah, so Rip, like, lays into Fred, like, you cannot touch anyone who has the brand. But I thought the brand was the secret, so how would they know? We know that they know Jimmy has the brand, but I mean before that, like, the precedent. Like, he's like, you can't touch anybody with the brand, but I thought that was, like, kind of a secret thing.
So Lloyd has his own sort of regimen in the bunkhouse, right? So we learned this the last time out, that he took off his shirt and they all saw this brand and it matched the one that Jimmy had. So I don't think that the brand was a known thing. I don't get that feeling. At least not to the other people, but I don't understand, sort of Rip's anger with it. Like, how were they supposed to know? Jimmy
really needs to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of sad. And then, was it Lloyd whips him in the face?
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it did feel a little gratuitous, this scene. But,
yeah, it kind of went on.
I appreciate that they need to, like, move the story and show how Jimmy's, changing and reluctantly for the better, I guess. I don't know. He's kind of been up to some shady shit on the Dutton Ranch, too.
Yeah.
But it also shows, like, just, like, how tough this way of life is and how badass these guys are still to this day. I'm sure, like, if these guys got, the coronavirus would apologize and be like, I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again.
I'm going to leave. Sorry. Yeah. Let me just get out of here. Yeah, I mean, but I like how, Rip's trying to teach Jimmy that, like, you have a place here. Like, you need to stand up for your place here.
Right. Yeah,
like,
you belong.
Stop apologizing.
Yeah.
Because even he, like, sort of took the blame for Fred. Like, oh, I started it. Don't fight him. I don't know. I think Rip's sort of trying to teach Jimmy in his own way that, like, stand up and take your claim here and act like you belong.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you belong is really what the message was.
Yeah.
And this guy doesn't. So I felt bad for Fred. I did feel bad for Fred when Lloyd was driving him to the train station with air quotes.
We did see the sign. It said Wyoming.
I did. I saw that. Definitely think there's less people in Wyoming than probably any other state. But Lloyd knew exactly where he was going. I didn't see a Waze. I didn't see a GPS. Lloyd knew where he was going. So
He's been there before.
I have a feeling the train station has been recipient of several passengers.
Yeah.
Over the years.
I thought it was like, I don't know if graphic is the right word, but
it was graphic.
I mean, when they showed him from the side, he like kicked him off the cliff.
Like he stood there for a second with a gunshot in his head.
Creepy.
But I mean, like, at what point did Fred realize that this was happening? I mean, like, Lloyd throws his stuff over the cliff and just like, wait, what? This ain't no train station. I don't think he realized what was going on up until the very end.
Yeah. And then he like drives off.
Yeah, why would you go to Wyoming to go to a train station, you know?
Yeah, I wonder how long they've been driving. I'd have been like, where are you taking me, man? This is really far out of the way.
I mean, it was like dead of night by the time they got there. I mean, it was
Yeah.
pitch black, and, you know, they left. I mean, Rip was saying, like, go get your supper to the other guys and give this
Yeah.
man his week's wages. So, you know, what, 5, 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Well, he's going to get home and the cow's going to be, you know, need to be fed.
He's like, I didn't get any sleep last
No
night.
sleep for me. I guess that's the brand, right?
Doing what needs to be done.
That's right.
So also what's interesting is that when Rip told John, he told him to go get someone else to replace him that would wear the brand. And then he told him to go to prison and find somebody. So
Do it the way my daddy did it.
yeah, because I mean, what else are you going to do? Like, where else are you going to go?
Right. Well, Jimmy was into drugs, so they got him and branded him and cleaned him up. Casey, I'm curious about. I mean, we know that he's already done
Yeah,
some criminal activities, but like to have the brand. And
Yeah, I do not
Rip we've
understand
also
that.
seen some things as well. So I'm curious as to know like how far that goes back. Because now we know that John does not wear the brand. We saw that the last episode when he was with the governor.
It still bothers me that Casey has the brand.
Right. Your son has the brand.
Yeah, that still just doesn't seem right.
No, definitely not. So I got one more thing, because for me, like, the music always plays such a big part in this show.
I love the music on the show.
It's one of the more fabulous aspects of the show because each song, if you listen to the lyrics, relates in some way, somehow, to what's going on in the scene. And I think it's very intentional, and I think it's important to highlight because it does take on its own life and its own role. So I found a Rolling Stone article from around this time, when this came out in 2018. It's talking about the music and specifically about this episode where Whiskey Myers is the country rock band that's featured in the bar scene with Beth and Dan, and then later on
and
with
I
Beth
really
and
liked that song as it was playing.
Oh, absolutely. The article is talking about how they just had an album dropping as the episode was coming out, like around the same time. But also their cameo in this episode brought their previous 2 albums back into the top 10 on iTunes.
Wow.
Like, that's the reach of this show, that
That's
it was
awesome.
able to do that. They also interviewed the music supervisor for Yellowstone. She took a deep dive into Nashville to research the bands and artists and everyone that's out there in this genre to immerse herself to be able to make educated choices about the music. They wanted the representation of the music to complement the show.
Yeah.
Her name is Andrea Von Foster, the music supervisor. So she definitely scours the music world to find this. It's quote, it's a natural match between the show's storyline and the lyrics. Just about every episode has mentioned something about some song that's playing at some point where we're just like, that's a really great selection for this moment.
I've tried to find a playlist. Like, I found a Spotify playlist that said Yellowstone, and it just wasn't quite maybe all the same songs. I didn't really get through it. So I was listening, and then I thought, well, I don't love that song, like, next. And then, so I'm not sure that they really found the actual songs that were in the episodes, but it was like a Yellowstone-based playlist.
Yellowstone inspired.
I want to be that lady's assistant. I'll go with you to Nashville and
Hell
listen to all
yeah.
the... I'll take that job.
Let's go to Austin next. That's another nice hotbed of
Yes.
music activity, and
I would love that.
I wouldn't mind that at all.
Maybe we should start a list of these songs as we hear them, because they are good.
They are really good.
Oh, we also needed to start our trivia list. Remember, we were going to do like a trivia.
What trivia questions do we have from this episode?
I guess we could say who's the first person we saw go to the train station.
Where is the train station?
Yes, what state is the train station?
Oh, what was the name of the band? Because they had their big logo behind them as they were playing. Whiskey Meyer, for those
We're going to make a list.
for those of you playing along at home.
Well, I can't wait to see what happens next episode.
I know. Well, next episode is halfway through season 1, episode 5. Actually, I think season 1 only has 9 episodes.
Really?
According to Peacock, there's only 9. It's going fast.
Well, I will meet you back here next week.
All right, I'll see you at the bunkhouse.
Yeah.
This is Sheila.
This is Steph.
Thanks for joining us. If you could just head on over to Apple Podcasts to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, giving us 5 stars would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.